Well, hello everybody. Welcome to the show. I am here. Garrett is here. Hello, Garrett. How are you?
Hey, howdy. Oh, another day,
Yeah, another rough one
Running
for you.
in, getting in right at 5 o'clock.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, we've got this tiny window where we're able to connect and do
Yep.
this. So I'm glad you're here. I'm glad I'm here. I want to start briefly on this weekend. I'm crushed because I brought all this equipment. I broke down my entire studio here and took it up north with me. I was on the golf uh, retreat, little weekend getaway with me and G Money. Tooch was in town, which was awesome to hang with Tooch for a few days. And the gentleman that hosts the whole damn thing, Chris Coe, who works with my brother, Coe's just an awesome guy,
Yeah.
amazing person, and his story is even more amazing. And so I was like, you know what? One of these days I'm gonna bring equipment up there and do an interview. And he's like, yeah, let's do it. And so we did, and Tooch helped me set up. We set everything up and had to go, it was like 8 o'clock in the morning. We had this small window uh, of time, and we're getting terrible shots. I wanted to do it outside with the course in the background, like all this stuff. And we ended up settling inside, got this beautiful shot, fireplace behind us, gorgeous house. And he and I sat down for an hour and a half and told his story. Amazing. It was great. And I sent it to Aaron. I was like, "Hey, can we post this for Monday's show? Because I won't be home yet. I won't be home in time, but at least there'll be a show for Monday." And he's like, "Yeah, no problem." And he's like, "Boy, the video looks amazing. Everything looks great. There's
Uh-oh.
no sound on it."
Oh, no.
And I was like, "What do you mean there's no sound on it?" I mean, the way these guys hook this up, this is plug and play. It's as simple as it gets. I can show you the cloud lifter and a couple pieces of equipment I have here. As long as I got an internet connection, my camera, everything's great. Well, everything looks normal on my end. And by normal, what I mean is when I get all this hooked up and you and I do a show, I can look over at any point and I can see I'm getting levels. I can see that you're getting levels.
Yep.
And I know when we're live, if there's a problem, someone's going to jump in the chat and go, "We can't hear you. We can't see you," whatever that may be. Well, I was recording it because it was Sunday and it was 8 o'clock in the morning. Like it was just not when we normally do it. So everything looks normal. Well, when I unhooked, apparently, Aaron and I were on the phone for a couple hours last night going through this. When I unplugged everything and then rehooked it all up, for some reason, this thing reverted back to like its original settings. And so it was capturing, it muted the audio. Yep. And so while everything looked totally normal on this end, it fucking recorded and I'm just devastated because it was such a cool conversation, such a great story. And then I had to text Chris last night and go, "Dude, you're not going to believe this." So he's like, "No problem. We'll do it again." The problem with that is it's really hard to recreate. Jay and I went through this a couple times where we had discussions that were really good. And the cool thing about this show that I've always appreciated about it is Garrett has basically no idea where I'm going. And he can either hang with me or he can't. He can either roll with shit or he can't. I don't like giving people a lot of advance warning on stories I'm going to do. The only advance warning Garrett has, for instance, or Troy had, or Jay had, for the most part, is if on that end of it, I've got video I want to play or something, then Garrett's got a pretty good idea. Like, okay, I see where he's going. But that's 2 out of the 10 stories. Otherwise, Garrett has no idea what I'm going to bring up, and he can either hang with me or he can't.
Nope. And sometimes you just send me like movie clips from old movies. I'm like, this will be relevant at some point.
At some point, this will make sense. Hopefully. Why is he sending me a movie clip from 1986? I don't know. Well, I guess we'll all find out together. And you find out really quick who can hang and have fun and roll with it and stuff like that. And so it's great. So Jay and I have done this a couple times where in the very early days of the podcast, E forgot to hit record on the thing or whatever. And so we didn't have, and then it was like, well, shit. And Jay was like, we've got to, he was kind of a sticker. So it was like, okay, well, let's just redo the show. We did an hour and a half. We can just do another hour and a half. I've still got the stories. Trying to recreate those conversations after the fact and do them again, you don't realize just how much off the cuff you are. So even saying a joke or something smart assy in the moment when you try to recreate that, it's like, yeah, I already said that. It just doesn't land the same. And so, I'll be able to prep more. I told Chris, look, this studio in the real studio will be set up here in a couple months time. And then I'll bring you back in and we'll do it. And I'll have to do him justice and his story. But it really fucking bums me out that at this kind of critical time, I wasn't able to get his story, his perspective, his angle on a lot of things. And I feel really bad for him because I wasted 2 hours of his fucking time.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a show for all of you fine folks on Monday. I thought it was going to be really special, really cool. And unfortunately, that's just how it goes. And I was telling him before we went, I was like, I was anxious. I was nervous, and not to do a conversation, not to do a show, but because it was the first time I was in charge of everything.
Yeah.
I always have AA Ron or fucking Trav. I have something there going, oh, all right, guys, we're good. So if I have a guest in studio, one of those guys is always there on some level. Whether you see him or not, they're there on some level. And I made the conscious decision, like, I got this. I don't need to waste their time. I don't need to bother them on a Sunday morning. I don't need to do that. And of course I did. And I had to ask Aaron, I was like, do you think you would have noticed? And he's like, yeah, I would have figured out that something was off. And it's like,
yeah.
And because I almost did. And then I was just like, no, these guys donate their time. I don't want to do it to them. So I'm very sorry. I'm especially sorry to Chris Coe, who spent time doing that. And, but anyways, we'll make it right at some point. But that's why there was not a show yesterday, because I wasn't in town, and that's what happened. So Bear with us. It happens. I'm glad to be here today. It's kind of an interesting weekend, golf and all that, and having some cocktails with the boys and doing some golf. And it was awesome. Amazing place. But that there was a lot that went on over the weekend. The famous Joe Rogan podcast landed with Trump on Friday. I knew they were recording Friday. For some reason, I thought, I think his deal is he holds it for a couple hours so they can clean anything up that they need, not contextually, but
yeah, I
think that's the way it goes. So I was surprised to go to my Spotify, as I do every day, and see that, boom, that interview had landed. And I was like, shit. So I watched it.
Yep.
I think you watched it, Garrett.
That I did.
What did you think?
It's interesting seeing him in a more subdued setting, but it's good to know that he can just go for 3 hours and it's not repeating. Yeah. It's not crazy. He's not coming off too weird. It's like, no, he's just there talking with Joe.
Yeah.
It was like a normal episode of Joe Rogan.
You know what? I thought it was fine. It was fine. I think I made the statement last week that I don't think it'll move the needle much. No. Whereas a few months ago, I really thought it would. But these guys have been doing so many of these, JD Vance, Trump himself, just going, you know what? I don't need to go on CNN. I don't need to do 60 Minutes. Fuck these people. They're not fair. They don't really, they're going to twist what I say anyway. So fuck them. I'm not doing it. And I totally understand that. It's a reality. I've got some stories today that will further that narrative about what the reality is in landscape media, traditional media, what we know of it. And I think you're just as well going on these random shows with a comic or whatever.
Better off.
I do too.
Listenership wise and viewers, you're way better off going on a podcast.
Here's the problem with the Joe Rogan one. I don't think it was as good as a normal Joe Rogan episode in that. And I remember this one other time with Rogan. I remember him doing this one other time where he was fully aware that when he put Alex Jones on the last time, I think it was the last time he had him on, maybe not, but one of those where it was like, Alex had recently been kicked off of everything. He's banned from YouTube. He's being sued here. He was banned when he was kicked off of YouTube. He was kicked off of Twitter and Facebook and like everything. They tried to bankrupt him. They tried to destroy him. And my argument then was, you can hate Alex Jones all you want, but if they can take him down, it'll be much easier to take down everybody else. It's just the first domino to fall. And that's the trouble with that, is you need the Alex Joneses of the world out there. And those are the ones that need protection. Not even debating whether or not he's right or wrong most of the time, which he's usually right the more you look into it. Yeah. But either way, Joe Rogan didn't just do his normal interview with Alex Jones. It was like he knew that all the eyes of the world were on him. How dare you put this banned heathen on the air? And so Joe was going to fact check him in real time. And every sentence, it was like, oh, well, according to this. And so it just didn't have the normal like conversational shit that Joe is so great at. It took on a different thing because Joe was fully aware that he was going to be people were going to micro attack that show. And you can't, as much as Joe would probably deny that, it's just a fact of human behavior that it was going to have some sort of effect.
I don't know. I mean, the last time Alex Jones was on was the time he started going off about interdimensional pedophile demons.
Okay.
He went a little crazy on that. But
do you know the episode I'm talking about? Because I don't know that I've watched every episode that he's done on there, but one of them was like...
I think it was Mark Zuckerberg.
Wait.
I know the Zuckerberg one, he was very, very careful about everything he said. He wasn't...
No. There was an Alex Jones one too. And it might have been before. It might have been when he was first banned on everything. And I was kind of surprised. I remember at the time thinking, wow, that's kind of ballsy to go and throw Alex Jones on there. I know they both live in Austin and have known each other for a long time. But
Joe's been his buddy since like the 90s.
Yeah. I specifically remember a lot of fact checking on that one. And he had Jamie working overdrive to fact check everything. The Trump one, I think there was a lot of that where, and I think you also have a thing where no matter who's in studio with Joe Rogan at any time, and it can be a leader in their field, it can be a brilliant science guy, whatever, that guy is still playing second fiddle to Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan is the biggest guy in the room. Even when he's got an expert in this field on, or an expert in that field, a rock star, an actor, Joe Rogan is equal or above that person as far as celebrity goes. And so Joe's kind of always the alpha in the room. And he does a very good job of not abusing that, of letting people speak. He does do all that really well. But he's definitely not the king of the mountain when you're talking about this one particular person on earth, and it's Trump. And so it had a different feel, a different balance to it, where I also watched part of Trump did an interview on Andrew Schultz's podcast a few weeks ago, 30 days out from the election, where this one was 10 days out from the election. And it was much smoother, much more kind of yucking it up, having fun conversation. I think Trump came off better in the Andrew Schultz one. I think it was Andrew Schultz. Yeah. And his crew were kind of screwing around and having more fun. It seemed more like that kind of thing. And I think it's unfair for Joe that it's got to be a tremendous amount of pressure. I can only imagine the amount of pressure on him. He was dressed different. Rogan was with the black, silky black button-up shirt on. Usually he's in a fucking t-shirt that says,
I still think that's fair though. To dress up a little bit when you're meeting with the president to be.
Yeah, but it just takes it's just a kind of different vibe,
No, but like guys like what's his face? He just quit podcasting. I don't know why I'm forgetting his name, the Beanie Man, but he went to the White House famously with Tim Pool. He famously went to the White House wearing his beanie and sloppy. Mm-hmm. He got roasted up among all the flame by everybody. He's just like, dude, that's just disrespectful. Like, it's the White House. You're sitting at the dinner. And I feel like Rogan felt like he had to button up a little bit for this interview because it is a presidential candidate. It's a different animal.
I get it.
It's not his rock star buddy or a doctor or something where he can shoot the shit about his conspiracies.
It's just different. And, for all the people that are like, hey, didn't even fact check him on this or that. It's like, you're missing the point, dickhead. I'm way more like, I understand they're all gonna have policy differences, but can they be human beings? Can they just
Rogan's
shoot the shit
too.
for three hours? And I know that's what his goal was with Kamala Harris.
Yep. And I think he wanted that with Trump. Just like, let's have a conversation. I'm not going to try and throw things at you. I'm not going to debate you or topic and things. Just let's see where this goes.
And I'm totally fine with that. I don't expect these people to be Boy Scouts or, I just don't. So I don't think it's fair to expect and the fact of the matter is Joe Rogan shouldn't even be relevant in this conversation. If your landscape media did their jobs properly, this wouldn't be the case. You wouldn't need fucking comedians and just regular people doing this sort of work where, it doesn't always have to be a targeted attack. And, oh my God, what he said there, what he really meant was the worst thing humanly possible.
Yeah, it always is.
That garbage that they all do. So it's like, yeah, you've created a space where this is necessary, and we're all thirsty for it. Like, hey, can this person sit down for a couple 3 hours and just shoot the shit? Like, amazing.
Yeah.
It's a different world we're in right now with this sort of thing. Rogan tweeted out today about he revealed that there were numerous demands from Kamala Harris and her team to appear on Rogan's show. Rogan offered both Trump an invitation to and her an invitation. Trump agreed, sat down, did 3 hours, crushed it. No problem. Posting on X, Rogan said, the Harris camp demanded that the host travel to her and that Harris would only do an hour. For the record, the Harris campaign has not passed on doing the podcast. They offered a date for Tuesday, but I would have had to travel to her, and they only wanted to do an hour.
Rogan does not travel. He famously has only done one non-in-person interview, and it was Edward Snowden because he's locked in Russia.
But he did that still from his studio on the
from his
laptop.
studio. Yeah,
and
that's the only time it's been a deviation.
Yes. And by the way, Joe saying that, he's being polite. For the record, the Harris campaign has not passed on doing the podcast. Yeah, they did pass on doing the podcast. Everybody knows what that is. Yeah. That's what it is. It's not an hour, and it's not Joe flying somewhere in the country and setting up to do you. No, having the balls to go into someone else's house like everybody else has done all along. This isn't a radio station. This isn't that's not how it's done. Yeah. And so everybody knows the rules. So when it's like, oh, we've got rules, of course they have rules. That's part of the problem, Kamala. That's what you don't get. That's the part that time and time and time again, you don't fucking get. You want to set all the rules for the debate. Trump says, fine. Joe Dickhead Biden wants to set the rules for the debate. Oh, no audience. That'll get him. No, blew up in your face. Now Kamala wants to change it. And when Trump goes, fuck off, I already agreed to do it this way. Now you want to go, ooh, he's scared. Fuck out of here.
Constantly the kid who loses at a game and takes the ball and goes home.
Yeah.
Nobody can play if you can't play it this way.
Yeah. I don't understand. Just say no. Just say no to doing it. You don't always get to be in control. If you want to reach these people, which you wouldn't have reached anyways, Kamala, let's be honest, I have seen nothing. And believe me, there's guys that I've vehemently disagreed with their policies, and then you hear them talk and you go, that guy would be a problem. I don't agree with him politically, but that guy can hang. That guy can do it. I have seen nothing that leads me to believe that Kamala Harris can do that. Nothing. And this is exactly why her team would dance around this we tried. We did everything we could. We wanted to do the interview with Rogan. No, you didn't. Otherwise, you would have just done it. That 3 hours is way fucking more important than some shitty diner in Pennsylvania. It just is. Some photo op with Stretch and Gretchen at a shitty bar in Michigan. That 3 hours, you cancel your rest of your day, you fly into Austin, and you sit down, and you know what's going to happen? 40 million people are going to watch it.
Yeah.
You're going to reach more people then. What's that?
I said, do you know who's doing all that tomorrow? Is JD Vance.
JD Vance. Duh. Yeah, simple. You know why? Because JD Vance can absolutely go in there and have a rational conversation like a human being. You might not agree with him. You might hate him. But you know what would be cool? If for JD Vance as a human being, without the biased media weighing in and giving their moral authority as to what you're supposed to think, to have a grown man sit down with another grown man and talk about it. I'd be shocked if Rogan doesn't bring up, bet you regret making that cat lady comment, and let JD Vance fucking pontificate for 10 straight minutes, uninterrupted, without a commercial break, without hearing from the latest medication from Pfizer, without hearing some smug elitist asshole in a suit and tie try to take you to task for it. Just let him talk about it. Yeah, that was funny. Here's why. Here's what I meant. Here's how the media twisted it. Here's why it popped back up 3 years after the fact. Here's the game. Have two reasonable human beings discuss stuff. No problem. JD Vance has no problem with that. None. So, yeah, I think it's great. He's going to go on the Joe Rogan Experience. This is according to two people with information about this. The Guardian reported this. I hope it's true. Not sure how much it matters one way or the other. But supposed to sit down with Rogan, scheduled 9 a.m. on Wednesday. And so we'll see. Both Trump and Vance have focused much of their attention on sitting down for podcasts over the past month of the campaign. Trump did the Ben Shapiro Show, Lex Friedman, Full Send podcast with the Nelk Boys, Barstool Sports, Bussin' with the Boys, among others. Theo Vaughn, I think, was a really important one. I know you watched that. I didn't. And then he did something with The Undertaker. I might have mentioned it. I don't know what his show is. J.D. Vance has done Theo Vaughn, Tim Dillon. Those are great. Those are great to do. Last I knew, Trump's appearance on Rogan had been viewed 37 million times in about 35 hours, which is kind of incredible. Harris has started to do some podcasts too. Kamala Harris. She sat down with Call Her Daddy, as we remember. Yep. Worthless for the most part. But, you know, if she's trying to reach that audience, which I don't think is terribly important to her, you know, fine.
Cool.
She also did Howard Stern. Again, worthless, totally pointless. That's his, I don't know if they've got Diddy tapes on that guy or what, but everything's so radically changing the way it has is noticeable. Absolutely noticeable. So with Howard Stern, pointless interview. It's why no one talks about it. Yep. No one. And it Call Her Daddy, by the way, got less than 1 million views for context.
Ooh. And that's the show right behind Rogan.
Yeah. Less than 1 million views on Kamala Harris's interview. So for what it's worth. Also, she did Shannon Sharp. What is that? Club Shay Shay?
I think so.
Fine. Popular with certain communities. Yeah. Good. Shannon's
the black
fine.
Vote.
I don't know what that is. If that's the athlete vote, the black vote, it's fine. It's okay. I've seen a little bit of it. It's fine. It doesn't do much for me, but teach their own. Yeah. She also did Lenny McKelvey's podcast or show. Charlemagne the God. I don't call him Charlemagne the God. I'm not going to refer to another grown man as Charlemagne the God. So Leonard McKelvey, she did his show as well. And even on that, it's, he's a Nazi. He's, so if there's not pushback on that, whatever.
No, his show's usually brain rot anyways. I've heard it before.
Did you see anything on the rally at Madison Square Garden?
Oh, the Nazi rally?
I think it was billed as a Nazi rally.
Yeah.
Pretty sure tying that together. This is the water causes cancer argument, by the way, because everybody that's ever had cancer drank water. So obviously water causes cancer. Famously in 1930, late 30s, I think it was, Hitler did some rally at Madison Square Garden. So I don't know how people that have played Madison Square Garden since the 30s, everybody who's anybody that can fill up Madison Square Garden, probably arguably the most iconic venue in America.
I'd say one of the biggest too. Not the biggest, but it's one of those ones where it's like in name alone. If you could say
a name alone,
Madison Square Garden.
Right. I don't even think it holds that many. I think it's like 20,000 or something.
Yeah, 20,000.
Something like that. But bringing this group of people together, I think is really cool, and selling out Madison Square Garden is cool. Of course, it's a Nazi rally. It's a white nationalist rally of some sort, which tells you where these people's heads are.
Multicultural. That's a really big and multicultural Nazi rally.
It sure is. Well, from what we know historically about Nazi rallies, it seems kind of
black people.
Yeah, a lot black people, gay people, Hispanic people, Democrats, really cool, Republicans. Like, it's weird. It's weird how they would do that. But they had I didn't even know who it was because I was out of town, and at night I'd throw on the TV and see like, wow, what's going on? And a lot of people were talking about this absolute monster of a human being, this comic, this comedian who went up there and was hating on Puerto Ricans and brown people and just nothing but hate and vile. And I was like, oh my God, what did this guy say? Who is this insane
Where can I get
person?
a stand-up bit?
Yeah, right. So yeah, it turns out it was Tony Hinchcliffe.
Literally another one of the biggest podcasts on the planet, Kill Tony.
Kill Tony, exactly. And so in New York, famously Kill Tony, by the way, is a show I think they sold out Madison Square Garden like a week straight or something.
Yeah,
Like
they
massive.
funny enough, they had one of the biggest listener hours. It's something in the billions of like hours listened to one episode of their show when they had Shane Gillis's Trump. And,
Oh, dude,
their other
I
guy,
even
yeah.
watched that. And the guy doing Biden was spot
Yeah, and the guy
on.
doing Biden, yep.
It was great.
It was like those two guys actually have the longest listened to show on YouTube right now, like in just listening hours.
Yeah. Well, I thought, Jon Stewart, I think is kind of a clown. I sort of like some of his stuff. I'm like, he's like Bill Maher to me.
Okay.
Some of the stuff, I'm like, yeah, he gets it. And some of the stuff, it's just like, whatever.
Yeah.
But he's a hardcore lefty. What are you going to do? Like, he's entitled to his opinion. But he's also a comic. And so while all this rage is going on, they wouldn't name the comic in a lot of the stuff I was seeing. They just talked about some random, and I'm like, who is this random comic that would appear at this rally with all these people and absolutely insult everyone? People are super offended. I saw former White House official Peter Navarro blasted Hinchcliffe's joke, calling it a double stupid. The joke itself isn't even funny. And that is ultimately why it was double stupid. Tony Hinchcliffe must be the biggest, stupidest asshole that ever came down the comedy pike. Never loved insult comedians other than Don Rickles. Okay.
Did he say stupidest? Because that's not a word.
Yeah, he did.
That's great. I love when people try and call you an idiot, but they say, you're the stupidest. And I'm like, that's not even a word, dude. You mute your argument.
Shut up, genius. And they misspelled genius. I love those
It's
ones.
a little bit of a grammar Nazi thing, but it's kind of just like, dude, come on. You can't come at me for intelligence right now.
Yeah. So I thought Jon Stewart's response was good. We can do you have the video there of Jon Stewart? He did a piece on it. Now, that's where I was able to find out, it was Tony Hinchcliffe. Jesus Christ. What a perfect fit in New York City.
And before we get to the video, I actually have a super chat real quick.
Yeah.
It's Super Chat Tuesday. $5 from Bobby Watermelon Smashing Gallagher.
Oh, I love it.
I love it
thank
too.
you. Thank you, Bobby Watermelon.
Bobby fucking Gallagher.
Thank you for the super chat. You can join us as well. Super chats. We'll read all of those. But yeah, let's check out Jon Stewart's take. Like, we've polluted our ocean. There's like the ocean is filled with garbage and waste or something like that. And so you think he's going to do some environmental thing. And he says, most people call it Puerto Rico. Now, I know that was too X-rated and vile, that joke for a lot of the listening audience. I apologize in advance. Look, Garrett and I are just talking about it and reporting on it. I know that's so vile.
No, they're still with us. We got another $2 from Bobby Watermelon Smashing Gallagher that says you guys are champions and so am I.
Yeah, you are. Yeah,
so we're okay. We're clear. I think our joke's all right.
These people still just don't get it. Like, I've got this story for the Trump rally or whatever, or when Trump was going to do Rogan's podcast. I don't know if you have the headline there. You can pull it up so people know what I'm talking about. Trump cancels all his events in favor of one of the worst people ever.
Of course.
Okay, that they're talking about Joe Rogan there. Okay, that's an actual report. Trump cancels all his events in favor of one of the worst people ever.
I mean, I would go with maybe Stalin, Mao, Hitler.
Yeah, no. Well, and Rogan, obviously.
Mount Rushmore.
It's kind of weird that he's the most popular podcast host in the entire fucking world, and one of the worst people ever. Meanwhile, Trump is this article I was reading, I was like, I got to hear about the worst person ever. After backing out of several major interviews at the last minute, Trump has one last major interview on the horizon, Joe Rogan. And then they take a shot here. The nominee will be meeting with the former Fear Factor host on Friday, reported Politico. So he's just a Fear Factor guy. He's just the guy that, that does color commentary for people eating worms, essentially, is what, and drinking cow piss. That's what Joe Rogan is. Nothing more, nothing to see here. Over the last several months, Trump has made a concerted effort to reach young male voters by signing up for a slew of interviews with podcasters. Meanwhile, Trump has aggressively dodged more mainstream news appearances, including going so far as to break election tradition by refusing to sit down for 60 minutes in September, which he reportedly backed out of last minute over fears that the rigorous show would fact check him. Yeah, that's not at all why, but whatever. Keep spinning the narrative that you think works for you. in these articles. That's why. If I was Trump, I'd say fuck them too. Make a larger point as to what the problem really is. What you're seeing play out in these moments is elites versus normal people. Normal people like to laugh. Normal people can laugh at funny jokes. Normal people can absolutely find humor, whether it's at the expense of Puerto Ricans or fucking Jews or black people or
themselves.
Whatever. What's that?
Or themselves.
Or themselves, of course. And if you're putting on a show like that, I think most normal, rational people don't need elitists telling them, like, this is too vile to be, we can't even play the joke. It's too vile. Is it the smartest move to have a roast comic up there? I bet that audience loved it. I bet they loved every minute of it. And it's why the Tom Brady roast blew away everything that's ever aired on Netflix. Highest ratings ever. People are desperate for that kind of shit. Laughing at each other's expense, getting along. That Gronk, you look like a Nazi, the Nazi who kept burning himself on the fucking ovens. Hilarious.
Solid.
That's funny as shit.
Chris Rock, you're so small, your ancestors, when they were picking cotton, called it deadlifting.
Deadlifting. I mean, and the funniest thing is, if you look at Kevin Hart in that, he's doubled over laughing harder than anybody.
Yep.
Laughing harder than anybody. We all get it. We all know what the gig is. So to pretend we're in this world where, oh my Lord, he meant everything he just said. Obviously, he 100%. Hates Puerto Ricans. Hinchcliffe went on to say, I won't even bother playing the AOC Tim Walz because they have a serious debate about it and acting like, who is this guy? It's like, yeah, that's how out of touch you are, Tim Walz. Man of the men who doesn't even know who Tony Hinchcliffe is and is like, yeah, this guy. I mean, what a monster. What an absolute monster. You're like, okay, dude. Fucking you, and you're going to get the male vote? Really, Tim?
Yeah.
Sorry. But he says, Hinchcliffe wrote, he was talking about Tim Walz and Alexandria. Why don't we play a second of it? We can just play a minute of it, that video. And then I'll tell you what Hinchcliffe said afterwards.
Oh, I know. This is funny. Let me find it.
Sorry.
So many links today. You're all good. I just have so many links. There we go.
Absolutely wild times. It really, really is. And,
can we turn that up?
There's a lot going on. Like, I don't know if you guys know this, but there's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now.
There we go.
Yeah. I think it's called Puerto Rico. Okay. All right. Okay. We're getting there. No.
Who is that jackwad? Who is that guy?
Actually, I think that's Tony Hinchcliffe, which is super disappointing. I mean, I don't. He's a comedian.
He's telling jokes.
I don't follow this
Trump, this issue
very
with Puerto
closely.
Rico. Again, I saw it. This was when he went down after Helene, the horrific hurricane.
Go back to
there,
sucking at Madden.
Everybody coming in.
Yeah.
We sent helicopters.
So go ahead and
down
pause
to
it.
In person.
So yeah, Tim, you can dress up you can cosplay a man. You can do that and wear your camouflage Vikings hat, and pretend to play Madden with AOC.
Yeah.
Like, because that's what guys do. We all get together and we just play Madden and camo hats.
Especially with women.
Yeah. But you don't know who Tony Hinchcliffe is. You should probably know who Tony Hinchcliffe is. Who's that jackwad? Yeah, that's part of the problem, Tim. It's part of the problem right there.
You just lost a lot of male voters right there, dude.
And so Hinchcliffe says, these people have no sense of humor. Wild that a vice presidential candidate would take time out of his busy schedule to analyze a joke taken out of context to make it seem racist. I love Puerto Rico and I vacation there. I made fun of everyone. Watch the whole set. I'm a comedian. Tim might be time to change your tampon.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I love it. So funny. And then we had I was watching my Niners play and my Lions. My fucking Lions dominated. Oh, it was awesome. As a real football fan, Tim, I was actually watching football this weekend, and then the Niners played the Cowboys. And I was shocked to see at the end of the game, post-game interview, they got a few players. Melissa Stark is there doing the interviews, and Nick Bosa comes running up wearing a MAGA hat, and he's just pointing at his MAGA hat, and then he runs off. And his teammates laughed. Melissa Stark kind of laughed. It wasn't like, oh my word, someone supporting Trump. But this is kind of a big deal, I think. Even doing that, because the NFL has made it so clear, where they stand on social justice issues, Colin Kaepernick, women rule everything. They've made they do not want one of their star athletes showing up in a MAGA hat.
No.
And, if an athlete ran up with a Kamala Harris hat, good for him. I wouldn't have a problem if someone wore a Harry Balls, 2024 hat. Like, okay, you could do that. There's no danger in that, though. There's no danger in wearing a Harry Balls 2024 hat.
No.
None. Like, you'd be praised for that.
Yeah. And what's also funny about this is that they're having such a hubbub over a racist joke or something like that. But one of the commenters here, Nick Georgioff, made a good point that George Lopez made a really fun racist joke inside of a Kamala rally. I have it right here.
Yeah, he did. I saw that.
God, 15 seconds.
It's like a fucking caveman.
They've been calling him Carlos Marx. I don't know who started that, but I love it.
That's hilarious.
Donald Trump said he was going to build a wall. And George Lopez said, you better build it in one day, because if you leave the material out there overnight.
Oh.
Uh-oh. This is too bad for TV.
Oh.
Donald Trump said.
So yeah, what is he getting at there?
I don't know, but it sounded a little racy. I don't know if we could finish that.
Boy, oh boy, was he saying that Mexicans steal stuff?
Yeah, I think so.
Wow, a comedian tried to poke fun at a whole group of people? Wow.
I don't know how I'm going to recover from this one.
Yeah, I don't know. That was probably too X-rated for our airwaves.
And I'm surprised we're still on YouTube.
I'm sorry you had to hear that, folks. So Nick Bosa, I think has been a Trump fan all along. Drafted in 2019, second overall pick. Trump even tweeted out at the time, congratulations, Nick Bosa. You're going to do great in your career, blah, blah, blah. So media outlets went after Nick Bosa back in 2016. He would have been at Ohio State, maybe his freshman year at Ohio State at the time. And he called Colin Kaepernick a clown. Yeah. So this is big during the kneeling, during the anthem stuff. Colin Kaepernick is a fucking clown. He is. Yeah. And, it's dangerous to say that. It wasn't dangerous for people like this show to say it. But if you were in the mainstream stuff, you couldn't dare have that opinion. Colin Kaepernick had to be right about everything, no matter what he did. He was awesome and perfect. So it was way more dangerous to come out and publicly say, like, this guy's a fucking clown. Well, he ended up removing that tweet back then and asked why. And he said, I had to. And they were like, why did you have to remove that tweet? Because I might end up being drafted by San Francisco, which is exactly what happened. He was drafted by the 49ers. So you could see behind the scenes, they're like, you got to take that tweet down if we're going to draft you. You're like, how dare you have an opinion about someone you disagree with? So that's kind of the world we're living in. Again, elites versus regular people. So yeah, Bosa's not the only athlete publicly backing Trump. Former Packers quarterback, Hall of Famer Brett Favre said, and I thought it was an interesting quote by him because I feel a lot like he does, and I'll explain why in a second. My vote is for what makes this country great: freedom of speech and religion, the Second Amendment, hardworking tax-paying citizens, police and military. In this election, we have freedom of choice, which all should respect. For me and these principles, my vote is for Trump. And it was funny. I went back and I watched the 2008 DNC talk that Obama gave. Okay. And it's 45 minutes long, 46 minutes long, something like that.
Yeah.
And I took some notes about it. So this is why this feels so important to me, because if you watch that rally from 2008, it's a stadium full of Americans, red, white, and blue everywhere, American flags everywhere, face painted with flags, red, white, and blue, chants of USA, USA breaking out throughout the whole thing, seemed completely opposite to what we see out of the left currently.
Yeah.
Just does. They don't feel like people that believe what they did then. And so I took some notes about what Obama's speech entailed that night. And this is why it's so hard, when people are like, when they make grandiose statements about Trump is racist and this and that, and building a wall is racist. And if you even think that, if you illegals are like all the stances that are shoved down our throats every day. Well, here's some of the things that Obama was saying. And it's like, yes, Obama from 2008 would be viewed today as mega, right? He would be alt-right, racist, xenophobic, Hitler-esque, fascist. So if I told you these comments were coming from Trump, you would believe me. If I said Obama, would you still believe me? Because here's some quotes from Obama that night. I will give tax breaks to companies that create and keep jobs in America. Cut taxes for working families. I will tap our oil reserves. Help our auto industry so our cars of the future are built right here in America. Further quote, 25 minutes into his speech. I will go through the federal budget line by line and eliminate programs that no longer work and make sure the ones we do need work and cost less, because we can't make 21st century work with 20th century bureaucracy.
Weird. I've heard that recently.
Yeah, sounds like something
by somebody who I heard was also a Nazi.
Individual responsibility and mutual responsibility. That's the essence of the America's promise. He further continues 30 minutes into his speech. I will rebuild our military to handle future conflicts. I will also renew the tough, direct diplomacy that can prevent Iran from ever getting nuclear weapons. Crowd breaks into chants of USA, USA, flags everywhere.
Wow.
35 minutes into Obama's speech from 2008 at the DNC. I don't know anyone who benefits when an employer undercuts American wages by hiring illegal workers.
Yeah. You know what's even funnier is in 2008, Barack Obama, and I quote, I believe marriage is between a man and a woman. I am not in favor of gay marriage. So he's more of a Nazi than Trump is.
Way more. And then he says, I know some dismiss such beliefs as happy talk. They say that this is just a Trojan horse for higher taxes and an abandonment of traditional values. And that's to be expected. If you don't have new ideas, this is how you scare voters. He goes on, if you don't have a record to run on, you paint your opponent as someone to run from. The change we need doesn't come from Washington. It comes to Washington.
Interesting.
Those are direct quotes from Barack Hussein Obama in 2008.
My whole family voted for him for a reason. That sounds like some pretty reasonable shit.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so when people ask me, like, how could you? It's like, because that party doesn't exist right now.
No.
That party, when people go, yeah, I know you want to paint me as a Nazi and a fascist all of a sudden, but I could stand behind Barack Obama in those statements.
At least in 2008.
In fact, the entire country stood behind Barack Obama with those principles, with those ideas. That it wasn't like, hey, we just let 20 million illegals into this country, taking up jobs, undercutting American wages, racist, xenophobe. How dare you? How dare you, Hitler? It's like, no, it's just a few years down the road from exactly what Barack Obama was proudly screaming from the microphone to wild chants from the entire crowd of USA, USA. That's why it seems like I don't recognize the party. That's why Tulsi Gabbard believed in those statements, those sentiments. It's why Kennedy believed in those statements, those sentiments. It's why it's so disturbing. And I think it's very telling when Barack Obama ends it with, if you don't have a record to run on, you paint your opponent as someone to run from. That's the knock on Kamala Harris. Whatever record she apparently has is not one you'd brag about. So how do you fix that? Well, you paint this guy as a monster to run from. And I also agree with the last thing. The change we need doesn't come from Washington. It comes to Washington.
Yeah, that's about what Trump did.
Period.
He went to Washington. He wasn't a politician.
Elon Musk said it at Trump's rally at Madison Square Garden. And I these comments, so when people ask me, like, why, what do you think? Whether or not anything gets implemented, saying stuff that I go, yeah, fuck yeah, man, long overdue. Let's hope to God, fingers crossed, that some of this stuff can come to fruition. Yeah. I don't have much faith in politicians. This feels different. It's this type of thing that I'm talking about when I talk about this. Seems like you got one chance right now. This is it. We go back to the bullshit, rolling up my sleeves for the American people, working hard bullshit that you've heard my entire life, certainly your entire life, Garrett. We go back to those clowns in another week. That this is the chance. If you want to have any chance of anything, this is it. So someone asked Elon Musk, how much do you think we can rip out of this wasted $6.5 trillion Biden-Harris budget? Musk was asked. Well, I think we could do at least $2 trillion. I mean, at the end of the day, you're being taxed. All government spending is taxation. So whether it's direct taxation or all government spending, either it becomes inflation or it's direct taxation. Your money's being wasted. And the Department of Government Efficiency is going to fix that. We're going to get the government off your back and out of your pocketbook. America is not just going to be great. America is going to reach heights that it's never seen before. The future is going to be amazing. I have no problem with that.
Huh? I don't either. I hope they're sticking to that shit because that's going to help me a lot.
I do too. And here's the reason why I go, because I know I've had people say it to me already. Like, you think they're going to do anything? Like, just dream on. Maybe. But I know the other side isn't even fucking talking about it. Yeah, it's not even a thought.
It's like, listen, whether they do it or not, at least they're putting the ideas out for other people to latch onto. And it's different. When you're talking about Elon Musk and Donald Trump, you're coming from a completely different place. Not politician mindset. Believe it or not, and some of you won't believe me, I remember having these conversations off air at the Drew and Mike show. When I don't believe any of these fucking people. None of them. We need a business guy in there to run this thing I don't need joy from this asshole. I don't need fulfillment from these people. I need them to do a job and get the fuck out of the way. That's it. Do your job and get out of the way. I watched Elon Musk do this with Twitter to great fucking harassment from the media, from elitist corners all over the globe. He's been under attack the entire time. He walked in there like a smartass. He mocked the smugness, the entitlement, the elitist snobs that were running that thing. And he said, get the fuck out of here. And he gutted 80% of them. Yep.
Fired them and laughed about it. And then people tried to shame us for going, yeah. And it was like, you think this is funny? These people lost their jobs. How dare you? It's like, yeah. We watched them forever take great pride in having a job at Google, at Twitter, at Facebook.
That motherfucker was making like $80K a year to sit at a desk for 2 hours a day and then go fuck off in the gym.
Yeah, go to the gym, have smoothies. Yep. It was just an elitist look down your nose at real working Americans. That's what it was, which is why when he came in there with the kitchen sink prop and went, get them all out of here. Get them all out of here. Yep. And everyone lost their shit. Twitter's never been better. Is it perfect? No, it never will be. But it's fucking absolutely incredible how much better Twitter is now. Just is.
No, and one of the coolest things is every time I click on a story or something like that, if you scroll the comments, it's a 50-50 shot. It's right wingers or left wingers yelling it. It's any given one.
Wait, so what's that?
Like if I post just an example, 2 different tweets about Tony Hinchcliffe, just depending on who reposted it or whatever, it's like the entire comment section is all left wing or all right wing, but it's one of those things where it's like it used to only be one side at a time.
Yeah,
I'm glad everyone's getting together and yelling at each other again.
Totally. All I could think was I tweeted today. Who is who here? And all I could think of was Rodney Dangerfield in Back to School.
Yeah.
Like one of these is Trump and one of these is what you think of elitist university people that are on all the talk shows talking down to you. And I pulled this scene. Do you have it there? We'll probably
Yeah,
get
right
kicked
here.
off of everything for this, but
I was just taking small burst pause.
there's a reason Rodney Dangerfield is who the whole country roots for. You're not rooting for this guy, the professor. But one of these is Trump, and one of these is the establishment.
Not given Rodney's comedy, I guess I can guess.
All right, settle down, people. We've got a lot to cover, and time is short. There are two kinds of people in business today,
Always goofy.
the quick and the dead. So rather than waste your time this semester with a lot of useless theories, we're going to jump right in with both feet and create a fictional company from the ground up. We'll construct our physical plant. We'll set up an efficient administrative and executive structure. Then we'll manufacture our product and market it. I think you'll find it very interesting and a lot of fun. So let's start by looking at construction costs of our new factory.
What's the product?
Come.
That is immaterial for the purposes of our discussion here, but if it makes you happy, let's say we're making tape recorders.
Tape recorders? Are you kidding? The Japs will kill us on a labor course.
Okay, fine.
Fine.
Then let's just say they're widgets.
What's a widget?
It's a fictional product. It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Tell that to the bank, you
Take it
know.
easy, take it easy. It's the first day.
On the board,
I mean,
you
that's
will
the
see a
questions
cost
I would.
analysis for construction of a 30,000 square foot facility, which will encompass both factory and office space, and is fully serviced by all utilities, a railroad spur line, and a 4-bay shipping dock.
Hold it. Why build? You're better off leasing at $1.25, $1.50 a square foot. Take your down payment and put it into CDs, or something else you can roll over every couple of months.
Thank you, Mr. Mellon. But we'll be concentrating on finance a little later in the term. For the time being, let's just concentrate on the construction figures, shall we? You will see the final bottom line requires the factoring in of not just the material and construction costs, but also the architect's fees and the costs of land servicing.
Oh, you left out a bunch of stuff.
Oh, really?
He's about to get in what I work
Like
with.
what, for instance?
Well,
Permits,
first of all,
applications.
you're going to have to grease the local politicians for the sudden zoning problems that always come up. Then there's the kickbacks to the carpenters. And if you plan on using any cement in this building, I'm sure the Teamsters like to have a little chat with you, and that'll cost you. Oh, and don't forget a little something for the building inspectors. Then there's a long-term cost, such as waste disposal. I don't know if you're familiar with who runs that business, but I assure you it's not the Boy Scouts.
That'll be quite enough, Mr. Mellon. Maybe bribes and kickbacks and mafia payoffs are how you do business. But they are not part of the legitimate business world. And they're certainly not part of anything I'm teaching in this class. Do I make myself clear?
Sorry, just trying to help, that's all.
Now, notwithstanding Mr. Mellon's input, the next question for us is where to build our factory.
How about Fantasyland?
That's in a nutshell what the majority of people see that are working and living in the real world. There's another clip from Caddyshack. And so pick out which one is Trump and then pick out which one. I'm going to give you a hint. The Ted Knight character. And that goes on through the whole movie. You watch the whole movie Caddyshack, and Judge Smales is, not at my cost, and Rodney puts him in his place time and time again, which is exactly what we see time and again when Trump's on and they're like, oh my God. He's like, don't tell him you're Jewish, all right? And most of us can fucking chuckle that stuff off and blow it off. It's why no one really gets all that upset except for the elitists at the top, you know? It is what it is. It's as stark as I can say it. The other thing, RFK went up there, and just like I liked Obama's speech in 2008, what he was talking about was important. Again, are these people going to be able to pull this off? I don't know, but it's the only chance you got, in my opinion. It's just my opinion, and I'm not that smart. So, you're going to have to make your own judgments as to what you care most about, what you think is important. So Kennedy talked about the Democrat Party himself. It's not the party anymore of Martin Luther King. They left me. It wasn't the other way around. It's not the party of Martin Luther King, of Robert Kennedy, of John Kennedy. That was the party of peace. It was the party of constitutional rights, of civil rights, freedom of speech. It was the party that wanted to protect and nurture the middle class. It was the party that stood up to censorship, to surveillance, that stood up to the CIA, the military-industrial complex. It was the party that wanted to protect public health and women's sports. My Uncle Ted Kennedy wrote Title IX, which protected women's sports in college. Today's party, Democratic Party, is about dismantling women's sports by letting men play women's sports. It's the party of Wall Street, the party of Bill Gates, who just gave $50 million to Kamala Harris. The Harris campaign is very proud to receive the endorsements of 50 former CIA agents and officers, and of John Bolton and of Dick Cheney. These are the people that are trying to undermine voting rights in this country by weaponizing the federal agencies against political candidates, including me. They can't win an election. And instead of bringing in a candidate who wins the primaries, abolish the primaries, and then picked 2 candidates, anointed them without receiving votes. We don't even know how Kamala Harris received the nomination. Democrats are also the party of Wall Street, big banks, big data, big tech, military contractors, and the parties of big pharma, big AG, big food, big chemicals. It's the party that's given us the sickest children in the history of the world. When my uncle was president, 6% of Americans had chronic disease, and we spent 0 on chronic disease in this country. Today, 60% of Americans have chronic disease. This is existential for our country. We're spending $4.3 trillion a year, 5 times our military budget. 77% of American boys cannot qualify for military service because of chronic disease diagnosis. So that sounds like, fact check that, right? Go ahead. You're not going to like what you see. But I don't have a problem with anything he just said there. It seems obvious. To the media elites, he's a whack job. He's an anti-vaxxer. But the truth is, he's an environmental lawyer who's been in that line of work and preaching that same story for decades. Yeah. He's been doing the work. He's the real fucking green guy, to be honest with you. And to see a stadium full of Republican voters standing ovation, cheering for a guy like that, that's the guy that can actually help with chemicals in your food. The Philip Morrises and the RJ Reynolds that own those companies that are poisoning all of us. Can they get it done? I don't know. I don't know. That's going to be a fight. That's going to be a war. But at least someone's talking about it. At least these people who make strange bedfellows. And I appreciated Kennedy coming out and saying, hey, man, I don't know if Trump's full of shit.
Yeah.
I think that is solidified over the last few months. But at the time, he was like, look, if this guy stands by his word, this is my chance to get in there and fucking work on some of this stuff. Yep.
And he's having a little hard time with it because I know the breaking news right now is Michigan and Wisconsin both rejected that have him taken off the ballots.
Yeah. No, that's done strategically on purpose.
Yep.
I don't remember seeing him on the ballot.
No, he's on the Michigan, Wisconsin are the ones right now.
I know. Michigan, I just filled out.
Interesting.
So I don't remember seeing him on there. I don't know. But yeah, it makes sense that they would want to clutter that up and have more people. I guess there were a lot of people on that for president. There were green ticket. Have you voted yet? Did you do early voting?
Not yet. I usually just do a day of in person.
That's what I've historically always done. Yeah, I don't keep an eye for that when you go vote next Tuesday. Remember?
I'll report back.
By the way, Bezos, I read his article, which I thought was good. I don't know how much you can trust, the guy that owns the Washington Post.
Yeah.
He wrote the hard truth. Americans don't trust the news media. It's exactly what we've been talking about for a long, long time.
Welcome to the train. Hop aboard.
Well, the elitists, once again, Bezos tells Weibo to hire more conservatives. The paper loses 200,000 subscribers over endorsement debacle. So they came out and said, we're not endorsing anyone, which is an endorsement the other way, to be honest with you. That paper is hard left and it's the New York Times type of thing. Jeff Bezos has now told the paper we need to add more conservative columnists in a bid to make the paper more balanced. We're just hire fucking journalists, man, who report stories and then let us judge for ourselves. I don't need conservative journalists any more than I need liberal journalists. You just need journalists. We're ups. We can figure this out ourselves. The paper cited its past position of more than 5 decades ago of not endorsing presidential nominees. We recognize that this will be read in a range of ways. That's inevitable. We don't see it that way. By the way, they're missing the bigger point. Literally nobody is swayed by these fucking things anymore. Your stupid editorial boards, who they're voting for, literally nobody cares. You do not have the exclusivity on the message that you enjoyed for decades. You had that, and you don't know how to adjust by not having that anymore. I don't know the level of stupid you would have to be like, any day now, the New York Times editorial board's going to let us know who to vote for.
Yeah.
Seriously? Who's doing that? How bloated does their ego have to be? 2 editorial board members quit over this decision. Quit.
Good. Fuck them.
Fuck them. I wonder if we'll get by. I'm resigning from the Post editorial board because the imperative to endorse Kamala Harris over Trump is about as morally clear as it gets. Worse, our silence is exactly what Trump wants for the media, for us to keep quiet. I hope we'll get by as a country without you, Ms. Roberts.
Yeah.
While leaving the board, I refuse to give up on the Post where I have spent 42 years, Hoffman wrote in a letter to Dave Shipley, the Post editorial page editor. I believe we face a real threat of autocracy in the candidacy of Donald Trump. I find it untenable and unconscionable that we have lost our voice at this perilous moment.
This is ridiculous. It's funny too.
Sir.
Coming from somebody who works for an avid Kamala Harris supporter, I just don't care.
Yeah.
My boss is voting for who he's voting for. That's
good
his
for him.
choice. Yeah,
good for him.
He wants to get more taxes, and that's his call.
So Jeff Bezos wrote this article. I like a lot of it. Whether it's true, whether he believes it, I don't know. In the annual public surveys about trust and reputation, journalists and the media have regularly fallen near the very bottom, often just above Congress. But in this year's Gallup poll, we have managed to fall below Congress. Our profession is now the least trusted of all. Something we are doing is clearly not working. Let me give an analogy. Voting machines must meet two requirements. They must count the vote accurately, and people must believe they count the vote accurately. The second requirement is distinct from and just as important as the first. Likewise with newspapers, we must be accurate and we must be believed to be accurate. It's a bitter pill to swallow, but we are failing on the second requirement. Most people believe the media is biased. Anyone who doesn't see this is paying scant attention to reality, and those who fight reality lose. Reality is an undefeated champion. It would be easy to blame others for our long and continuing fall in credibility and therefore decline in impact. But a victim mentality will not help. Complaining is not a strategy. We must work harder to control what we can control to increase our credibility. Presidential endorsements do nothing to tip the scales of an election. No undecided voters in Pennsylvania are going to say, I'm going with newspaper A's endorsement. That's the point. Yeah. Seems silly to even think. Like, how big a bloated fucking ego do you have to think that? Oh, yeah, they're just waiting on me to announce. And if the only reason that would be compelling is if you did something that we didn't already know you were going to say.
Exactly.
If the Washington Post or the New York Times editorial board came out and said we're voting for Trump, that would be a story. That would be newsworthy. The fact is, for decades, you all vote the same way every election, and then you shame anybody who doesn't see it your way. So, yeah, What presidential endorsements actually do is create a perception of bias or perception of non-independence. Ending them is a principled decision, and it's the right one. Declining to endorse presidential candidates is not enough to move us very far up the trust scale, but it's a meaningful step in the right direction. I wish we had made the change earlier than we did, in a moment further from the election and the emotions around it. That was inadequate planning and not some intentional strategy. No quid pro quo of any kind is at work here. Neither campaign nor candidate was consulted or informed at any level or in any way about this decision. It was made entirely internally. Dave Limp, the chief executive of one of my companies, Blue Origin, met with former President Trump on the day of our announcement. I sighed when I found out because I knew it would provide ammunition to those who would like to frame this as anything other than a principled decision. But the fact is, I didn't know about the meeting beforehand. Even Limp didn't know about it in advance. The meeting was scheduled quickly that morning. There is no connection between it and our decision. And any suggestion otherwise is false. When it comes to the appearance of conflict, I am not an ideal owner of the Post. Every day, somewhere, some Amazon exec or Blue Origin exec or someone from the other philanthropies and companies I own or invest in is meeting with government officials. I once wrote that the Post is a complexifier for me. It is, but it turns out I'm also a complexifier for the Post. You can see my wealth and business interests as a bulwark against intimidation, or you can see them as a web of conflicting interests. Only my own principles can tip the balance from one to the other. I assure you my views are, in fact, principled. I don't believe that, really, but
No.
But at least he recognizes that you're going to see it one way or the other. I don't believe that. I think COVID showed too many people's hands. We get to see too many people's hands with big pharma and all that stuff. And the Washington Post was as guilty as anybody.
See what Bezos has to do is join the Harris campaign to be the alternate to Trump's Rocket Man. Now Harris has a Rocket Man.
Yeah.
The competing company. They all need a little billionaire Rocket Man by him. Dude,
the Silicon Valley TV show addressed
awesome.
this, know? I mean, talking about what a joke it is that these billionaires, like, oh, now we're all doing this. We all have to own a yacht. Now we all need hundreds of foot yacht. Now we're all in rockets.
All the politicians. Now we need a billionaire on our side.
Yeah, we need a billionaire
rockets.
too. Yeah. It continues. Our brethren newspapers have the same issue, and it's a problem not only for media, but also for the nation. Many people are turning to off-the-cuff podcasts, inaccurate social media posts, and other unverified news sources, which can quickly spread misinformation and deepen divisions. The Washington Post and the New York Times win prizes, but increasingly we talk only to a certain elite. More and more we talk to ourselves. It wasn't always this way. In the 90s, we achieved 80% household penetration in the DC metro area. While I do not and will not push my personal interests, I will also not allow this paper to stay on autopilot and fade into irrelevance, overtaken by unresearched podcasts and social media barbs, not without a fight. It's too important. The stakes are too high. Now more than ever, the world needs a credible, trusted, independent voice, blah, blah, blah. He goes on. The problem is, sir, you guys got all of it wrong when it came to COVID. You got all of it wrong when it came to Joe Rogan batted 1,000 on COVID. He batted 1,000. One guy in a fucking room with one other researcher there got it right. All of it. Tell me where Joe Rogan fucked up on COVID. I'll wait. Tell me where we fucked up on COVID right here in a bedroom. How did we get it right? And all of you at the Washington Post and the New York Times ate shit day after day after day. How is that possible? How is it possible that with all your resources, you got it wrong? How is it possible that we got Russiagate right? Not partially right. We got it right across the board, and you failed. How is it that Jimmy Dore got Russiagate 100% right? And TDC podcast got it right. And Joe Rogan got it right. How did we all get it 100% right about Hunter Biden's laptop? And yet I can't figure it out. The Washington Post and the New York Times ate shit over and over. They still eat shit. And you know what, Jeff Bezos? Never once. It should be the headline in your paper. Here's where our trust failed you as Americans the most. We were all wrong. And it didn't, I don't have a problem with you being wrong on something. It's the fact that it seemed malicious. It was too easy to see where you were full of shit, where you were falling short, where you were shaming everybody, where you wanted to fucking mandate shit to your fellow American citizens. You failed miserably, and nobody, not any of the broadcast media, not any of you elitist newspapers around the country with your fucking stacked editorial boards ever once said, hey man, we fucked this up. We lied to you. We wronged you, and it's going to take decades, if not longer, to regain any level of trust from you. That's the facts. We can start from here on out. We give you our word. We will do proper reporting. We won't drop the ball on something like COVID again. We won't drop the ball and play to the interests of the elites and the powerful, and leave the voiceless hanging and shame the voiceless. We won't punch down any further. We will do a proper job. Our own fucking job, our only job is to hold the elites to account. That's your job. Don't let the powerful run roughshod over the little guy. That's where you failed, Jeff Bezos. That's where the Washington Post has failed. The New York Times has failed. And right now, you're dealing with people that try and are capable of making mistakes, but are trying to look out for the little guy, something you have failed to do.
Yeah.
It's what you failed to do, period. And so that's why Joe Rogan wins. It's why Jimmy Dore wins. It's why we get it right here and you get it wrong with all your resources. Shame on all of them. Shame on all of them. And that's what we're feeling. That's what we're seeing. And so this article sounds great in words, but you can tell by the board members storming off, throwing a little tantrum. This is the most consequential election ever. Yeah, it is, but not for the reasons you think it is. Not for the reasons you think it is. Hardworking Americans don't have time to be lied to you by these people. Steered in the wrong direction, turned against their neighbors, told that they're fucking racist and xenophobic and homophobic. No, they're not.
Especially when every lie is being blatantly proven false, like in real time.
Yeah, easily done. That's what they're contending with, Garrett. That's the problem today for them is they used to have that capture of all of it. And what they said was just truth. And then if you took issue with it, you were just some crazy whack job spewing off bullshit like, oh yeah, the government's spying on me. Oh yeah, aliens are real. You were just a whack job in a bar.
No, you're watching Alex Jones on public access, where the crazy people go.
Exactly. You were relegated to public access where you'd spout stuff off and nobody would listen. They'd call you crazy. Oh yeah, did you hear what Bill Mahalski said? Holy shit. Yeah. That guy's losing it. Well, no. There's a lot of us out there that have resources too. Some way more than others. And they just talk to you like you're a normal person. Yeah. They don't say it, they say it like the Rodney Dangerfield in Caddyshack. That's how most of us talk to each other. Right?
It is. It's funny.
Inappropriate things from time to time. Say it like it is, bust each other's balls. It's what we do.
No, it's extremely funny you say that because one of the ways I get my news is I like to talk to people from the areas where the news is happening. I messaged my Venezuelan friend one day. We had that Venezuelan migrant stuff, and they said they were all coming from prisons. They were just releasing the prisons, sending them up here. Yeah. So I messaged him. You know what he said back? Oh, hell yeah, we're doing that. Have fun with those motherfuckers.
Yeah.
He said, they're your problem now, bitch.
Yeah.
That's how we talk to each other.
No, it further goes, when the takeaway from the debate was this batshit. They're eating the cats. They're eating the dogs. Yeah. It was like there was an underlying message to that. And we've talked at length about it. Like, yeah, the messenger's not great, right? Donald Trump is a problem with that. His messaging is not great. He heard something, he spills it. Yeah. But the point is still there. The underlying point was, yeah, you dumped 20,000 fucking people who don't speak the language or share your cultural tradition into a poor area and said, you fucking deal with it.
Especially from a country where they legitimately eat cats and dogs. That's just general.
Sure.
They're hungry.
Sure, and
Not a
whether
shot
or
on
not-
them. They're just hungry down there.
Whether that's going on in those towns, I don't
Haiti.
know.
It is.
Maybe there's an incident of it here and there. It's probably not a chronic thing, but the fact is, the way bigger story is inundating those small communities with very, very limited resources and even more limited reach and voice and power, and sticking them with that. Saying your kids in the school system deal with that. Your hospitals deal with that, with translators and, social services maxed already. Nobody has an abundance of social services. I don't care what community it is. None of them have an abundance of it. And so then you flood it with people who don't even speak your language or share your customs. And you expect that, nope, nothing to see here. No, that was the point of Springfield, Ohio, Aurora, Colorado, San Antonio, Texas. That's the problem. And so they still don't get it. They still think it's they're eating the cats and the dogs. And then we've got one more story. CNN has banned conservative writer Ryan Gudersky from the network following a contentious on-air exchange where he told panelist Madai Hassan, he took some shot at him about, I hope your beeper doesn't go off.
That's pretty funny.
Kind of hilarious. They, of course, melted down. CNN panels melted down, and then CNN had to come out and say, there is zero room for racism or bigotry at CNN or on our air, said Gudersky, and said that Gudersky would not be allowed back on this network. You want to watch the exchange?
Yeah, I got it. Right here.
Get out of here, you.
Called Nazis. Stop doing.
You're called an anti-Semite. You've been called an anti-Semite more than anyone else's table.
Yeah.
And people would sit there and no, by me. I never called you an anti-Semite. I mean, I'm not sitting here saying I don't.
I'm a supporter of the Palestinians. So I'm used to it.
Yeah, I hope your beeper doesn't go off. The thing is that
you just say I should die.
You should not.
No, I
Well,
said
Palestinians.
No, I did not say that. I said, no, I did not say that.
Hold on.
He did say it. You gotta own the joke, dude.
Let me just stop.
You said you hope my beeper doesn't go off.
You said I'm a supporter
of the Palestinians.
Of Hamas.
Guys, let me
said
just
Palestinian.
Are you?
Am I what? No, of course I'm not.
Palestinians
I apologize.
Are you a racist, violent person inciting violence against
Ryan.
All right, now he's going too far. See, this is a hate situation.
Yeah.
Say the Muslim guy should be blown
I
up
apologize.
on
I
TV.
apologize.
Don't say then I apologize. You literally.
I thought he said
accused
Hamas.
him-
You didn't think I said Hamas. I said I supported Palestinian
Yes, I
rights.
did.
Why? Because when you hear
What's funny
Palestinian,
is
you
Rudy
hear Hamas.
Giuliani said this
No,
yesterday,
because-
so you're a great guest to
Listen.
be here
All
to
right,
defend
I
Rudy
told my
Giuliani.
kids
and
I wasn't
racism.
going to
Give me
entertain
one
nonsense
second.
today, and so at this point,
This is what we're in
I
now.
can't
This is
do
America in
Here's
2020.
what
I can't
will
do
say.
this.
Forget the
Here's what
racism.
that's right.
I should
That's
die.
right.
I didn't say that. You
You
should
said,
die.
what does beeper mean? Don't give me your
I
fake
did not say
ignorance.
you should
Guys,
die.
Why did you say
guys,
with my
give me-
beeper
give me
go
a-
off?
What did you mean?
What did you mean by the beeper?
So what did you mean?
What did you mean by the beeper?
Hamas.
No, you didn't. You said
It's a great line. All right.
It is a good line.
You get the exchange.
I'm mad at both of them. First of all, that guy overreacted like a motherfucker. That's a pussy
Yeah.
move. Oh, I can't stand for that kind of joke. Did you
I should die?
die?
Are you saying
Fuck that guy. And fuck
By
the
the
guy
way-
for backing off his joke. You make a line like that, you own it.
Yeah. He's trying to say like, oh, I thought you said you were in favor of Hamas. It's like, no, dude. Stand
You made a
firm.
good joke. That was fun.
It was a good joke.
Yeah.
Now, like in the moment, in the clash, those
could've-
shows
you
need
could've-
more moments like that.
If you wanted
the
to back
pearl
off, it, you could have
clutching-
been like, I'm sorry, man. You know what? Bad joke. Carry on. Let's go.
I
What
went
you
too
got?
far with that one. By the way, we haven't talked much about the beeper warfare. I mean, which is, gangster level. Gangster level. I don't like war at all. Never been a big fan of war. But dude, that's right out of a fucking movie script. Like you wouldn't write that. Like that.
No, I'll put it this way. I'm not the biggest fan of the Jewish community sometimes, but my gun's Jewish for a reason. They know what they're fucking doing over there.
Well, the bombs going off and the beepers.
Yep.
I'm not gonna
motherfuckers to fuck with.
It's but yeah, to act like, oh my god, and we will stand for none of this, blah blah blah. The fact is, the point that the guy was making, okay, when you're talking about the Gudersky guy, is like, hey man, you're calling everybody that disagrees with you fucking Nazis every day.
Yeah,
like, don't act so. Spare me, okay? The former Al Jazeera host Mehdi Hassan And I'll play video of him in a second. But back in 2019, this is the same guy that apologized for remarks made a few years back about gay people, LGBT people, and anyone non-Muslim. Like a lot of journalists, humans, I've said things years ago that I now deeply regret. Chief among them for me is was in my 20s when I wasn't a public figure. I gave a bunch of speeches to students on Islam/extremism. I said some dumb, offensive, ranty stuff, speaking without notes, and trying to be bombastic. I made stupid, sweeping remarks about non-Muslims. See, especially atheists. This is what this guy believes, though, right? As a proud Muslim. So when I say shit or you say shit, we're a comedy show, usually. We're always looking for the fucking smart ass comment in something. So if you take comedians out of context and you go, these words came out of his mouth. Wow.
Yeah.
These are the ones I have a problem with. Like,
Tony
no,
Hinchcliffe said Puerto Ricans are garbage.
When you're speaking to a group of students and bombastic and ranty, like, yeah, that's your true beliefs, though, sir. You weren't making wisecracks about, someone that disagrees with you and you're calling them a homo. Like, no, dude, these were hardcore beliefs you held. And I don't know that you don't still hold those, but are getting paid more to have your opinion.
Yeah.
So I cringe now when I reread those remarks. I made stupid, offensive analogies to animals. I'm embarrassed to have to write about all this again, but I don't want to defend or explain today. I just want to say I'm sorry. He compared non-Muslims and atheists to cattle and included homos in a long list of behaviors and categories, which he said argued were transgressive of Islam. All of these ulama unanimously agree that at the very minimum, if Yazid was not a kafir, then at a very minimum, he was a fasiq, a transgressor, a breaker of Islamic laws, a corrupt individual, a tyrant, a killer, a drunkard, a dog lover, a music lover, a homosexual, a pedophile, a sexual deviant, someone who slept with his own mother. Okay, so an ulama is a Muslim scholar. So that sentence, all of these ulama unanimously agree at the very minimum if Yazid was not a kafir. So what he's saying is all the Muslim scholars agree that if Yazid, who killed the grandson of Muhammad, if he was not a kafir, derogatory name for someone who doesn't follow Islam. So that's what he's saying. All the smart people agree that at a minimum, if this killer of Muhammad's grandson, at a minimum, he's someone who doesn't follow Islam. He's a transgressor, a tyrant, killer, drunkard, a dog fucker, a music lover. He's a music lover, a homosexual, a pedophile, sexual deviant, someone who fucked his own mom. This was a sermon he was given on Islamic law. In this respect, the Quran describes the atheist as cattle of those who grow the crops, do not stop and wonder about this, and then don't stop and wonder about this world. And then if you want to hear some more from him, I think I have a video of him.
Yeah, right here.
Kind of a supercut.
I mean, it's easy in American discourse to talk simplistically about the far left and the far right as two equally dangerous fringe blocks. But here's the difference. America's far left wants to give us free healthcare and free childcare. America's far right wants to give us white supremacy and no democracy. Is it fair to describe the modern GOP as neo-fascist or proto-fascist? Hillary Clinton was famously attacked for talking about a basket of Trump supporters as deplorables. But the reality is there are millions of Americans out there who either support racist, far-right authoritarian views or are willing to turn a blind eye. Woke is often used by conservatives as a way to complain about black people. After 9/11 and the launch of a so-called global war on terror, xenophobia and specifically Islamophobia became rampant here in the US. We had to be protected from the dangerous brown hordes at our borders. The refusal in DC to acknowledge sometimes the humanity and the innocence, not to mention suffering of ordinary Gazans. How much of that is driven by the fact that they're Arabs or they're mostly all Muslims or they don't look like us, do you think? Why is there seemingly no support for real Supreme Court reform, for expanding the court, rebalancing, as you've proposed? From today's shot resignation from Andrew Cuomo, today is a sad day for the Democratic Party.
You get the point. So this guy feels very, very comfortable going on MSNBC, CNN, and calling anybody that disagrees with him on the other side a fascist, a Nazi, Trump is Hitler, all those. So spare me when someone goes, yeah, I hope your beeper doesn't go off. Spare me when it's like, oh my God, he's calling for, are you calling for me to die? Are you calling for me to, well, what are you saying when you're calling people that disagree with you politically Nazis and what do you do with not the Nazi regime? What do you do with fascists?
One of those rhetorics ginned up people to shoot at the president twice.
Yeah. And probably more times.
Yeah.
So please spare me the pearl clutching moment of, my word, this man said something offensive. He made a fucking smart ass remark about, your beeper going off. By the way, there's a lot of people that think that the Palestinians have overwhelmingly voted for Hamas. Now, whether they were strong armed for that and, kind of gun to your head about that, I don't know. I don't even fucking want to get involved with it. It's why we don't do many stories on it. But please, you call all of your political opponents Nazis and fascists, neo-fascists every fucking day, sir. So someone takes a little shot at you. How do you like it? How do you like it when someone takes a shot at you that maybe crosses the line a little bit? I'm not losing any sleep over it, Garrett. Just between me and you.
Yeah, fuck both of them.
Yeah.
Both pussies.
I wish the one guy would have stood up, but he was like, oh shit, now the whole table's freaking out on me. I'm going to lose my, because those pay, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, those gigs, and that just goes poof. I like what he said at the end. The guy that was shit canned, Gudersky, he responded on X. So after CNN said that, like, there's no room for racism or bigotry at CNN or on our airwaves, but we can call half the country Nazis and fascists every day. That's cool. But as far as the other stuff, there's no room on our air for that. Gudersky responded saying, you can stay on CNN if you falsely call every Republican a Nazi, but apparently can't if you make a joke. I'm glad America gets to see what CNN stands for. Again, not defending him, but spare me, the pearl clutching going on. All right, let's go out with a couple emails.
Sounds good.
Deal. Trivia follow-up from Josh. Can I get access to James's email account since his emails get read daily? Meanwhile, I still wait for trivia justice. Regardless, keep up the great work, Mike and Garrett. San Francisco Jacks, Josh. Okay, Josh. I know what you're talking about. You sent me a lengthy email describing your argument against Amy in the years ago trivia contest, Detroit Cast trivia contest. I have the email. I'm not going to waste everybody's time reading the intimate details of that without Amy being here.
Yeah, we tried to get Amy on that one time so we could read it, and that didn't fall through. So there was plans.
I actually texted with Amy earlier today, and I said, hey, I don't know if you're doing anything later, but if you want to do the show, it had nothing to do with your email, Josh. But I thought with some of the discussion today, she would have been good. Unfortunately, she's out of town for work, and she doesn't get back. I said, all right, let's do something next week. So, Josh, when she's back on, I have your email right here. I will go through it line by line with her. So no, I haven't forgotten about it. She was just, I haven't had her on. Bidet. This is from our dear friend Connor. Mike, first let me start off by stating I love puss. I have 4 kids, been married 17 years and still love eating box. Jay used to call me porn star Connor. I think my resume speaks for itself as a box-loving guy. That said, I got a bidet a few months ago, and it changed my life. People that don't like a bidet are not only wrong, but I don't want to hear anything they have to say while they're walking around with those nasty, dirty assholes. My BH is so clean you could eat off it. Not that I would let anyone eat off it because, as previously stated, I fucking love puss. Hi, Woke Bay.
How do you
love? He's been spot on a lot of things. He's spot on with this. My weekend up north was made spectacular because this is the place that I was introduced, and I found out that I like some light asshole play. I didn't know that about myself. I'm confident in my manhood. My track record speaks for itself as well, Connor. It's well established. I'm a fan of the puss as well. But dude, The bidets are next level. And as Randy Marsh famously said, hey, you want to keep smearing shit all over your asshole, be my guest. But some of us are a little more advanced, and you need to get off this idea that it makes you gay or something because you like a little, work there. No offense, Garrett. But they're fantastic. They've come down in price. You don't have to do the Japanese toilet $10,000 things anymore.
No, I think ours was like $60 off Amazon.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect. So you're a big fan of asshole play. So it makes perfect sense that you would have one. But for the Connors of the world and for me, this was a bridge too far for a lot of years. And now I've seen the light. I'm glad. Welcome to the group, Connor. I feel comfortable shaking your hand now, knowing that you're not just smearing shit all over your asshole when you go party. Roger Rabbit. Okay, you guys forgot there's a set of Taz in there. Betty Boop's top comes off for no reason when she's talking to Eddie just before Jessica Rabbit comes on. You'll see it as a glitch on VHS, but if you can pause just right, it's good for 2 frames, one blurry, one full on, then back up. I'm not sure if you can see it in modern digital version. Yeah, he sent me a picture. Can you see your kitties there?
Yep.
Yeah.
Just enough.
Yeah. Again, Roger Rabbit's a hard one when we're talking about Disney movies showing like a cock in the castle build or something. That's one thing.
Yeah.
But
and Roger Rabbit was an adult movie, so I'm sure they were slipping anything they could in there.
Exactly. And I'm great. And by the way, just for Betty Boop's tits look great in this. Honestly. Good. I mean, that's a nice set of titties right there. I mean, for real. Jessica Rabbit was all the rage. Everybody, loved her.
Oh, man. Don't worry.
All right. We'll leave it there for today. What is it? Is that Boop? You got Boop on your arm?
Yep. There's a funny story to that.
What is it?
So I walked into a tattoo parlor to get some other work done. They had a little gumball machine in the corner, $40. Whatever comes out is what you get. And I went a step further. I didn't even open up the little paper that came out of
a gumball machine, but instead of gumballs, it was a tattoo design.
It's tattoos, yep. And it's $40. Whatever comes out of that machine is what you're getting. And so I was like, "Fuck it, let's go." I threw $40 down, and then I went a step further. I didn't even open up what the tattoo was. I just gave it to the artist and said, "You decide where this goes."
Nice.
I got Betty Boop on the back of my arm.
I love it. That's great. See that now? That's a tattoo worth having.
Exactly.
Honestly, that's cool. I dig stories like that. All right, we'll leave it there. Send your emails. Walters@DetroitCast.com. Garrett and I will be back tomorrow. I was gonna reach out to Henson today, but I didn't. Maybe I'll do that tomorrow, and we'll do something with Amy next week, and also I'll reach back out to Vinny as well.
Good.
See if we can't get him on. So have a great rest of the day, everybody.